Hey, it's Lewis. I am with Clint and Ethan from the PowerToys team, and we're just going to ask some questions about how developers could use PowerToys in their workflow. So, just for those who have been not on the internet for the last little bit, what is PowerToys? And
Simply put, PowerToys is a set of utilities for Windows users, especially power users, to get the most out of their machines. The story of PowerToys really doesn't end there, it really starts there. We use PowerToys as an incubation surface for a lot of ideas in Windows, things that we'd love to see get into the OS itself. And the best part about PowerToys is we're open source, so our community is a huge part of the utilities that we develop and a huge inspiration for us.
Yeah, cool. And so, what features specifically in PowerToys do you think developers would really love and should look out for?
Yeah, I was actually just thinking about this. And I mean, honestly, the utilities in PowerToys, there's quite a lot. I think we're almost nearing 30 now.
Okay.
We just released a new one yesterday. And they're all pretty different. So it really depends on kind of what your cup of tea is. You've got really standard things like obviously the ability to lay out your windows exactly like how you want. With Fancy Zones, which is one of our super popular utilities, that's a great one. But one of the ones that I found myself really loving lately is a utility called File Locksmith. So this is the idea that if I want to go and delete a folder, sometimes I just say, I go to delete a folder and File Explorer says, hey, you can't because this is running in some other process. And I go and I look at Task Manager and I'm like, what other process is possibly using this? File Locksmith is a utility from PowerToys that I can right-click on the file. I click on File Locksmith in that context menu, and it actually gives me a new window, and it says, here's all the utilities that are running whatever your file is, and it also gives me buttons to end those tasks. So I can then end those tasks, and I can delete whatever file it was that I wanted to get rid of, and honestly, it saves me so much time.
Yeah.
I've used that a lot this week because we've had some demos going, and that's been a ton of fun. But
yeah. For myself, I go, it's always on top. That is an app, it literally is what it sounds like. You you do the invoke keystroke, which I think is Control Window key T, maybe it's Control Shift T, Window key T. There's a lot of different keystrokes in PowerToys. But that then sets the window on a Z order on top of everything else. So what I use it a lot for is note taking. So I'll be in a conference call and I'll put Notepad on top so I can keep track of my notes. And then as people are talking, I'm taking notes so that I can actually have a follow-up question without interrupting them. And worse, not forget what I want to actually bring up. Another great one that I really like is PowerToys Run. It is my de facto Swiss Army knife for actually getting to where I need to go. If I have a program I need to launch, I just type the first couple letters, hit enter, it's there. You can do, there's a bunch of different plugins, community plugins also. It's fantastic. And I would say the last one there's two. There's projects, which we're going to roll out probably next release of PowerToys, which everyone has, their flow for getting where they need to go. So you put your windows exactly where you go. So if your machine restarts or you're entering a new project, it's great to just have everything auto-launch with the exact context that you need it. So we're working on this. So you click the icon right now, it'll probably be, shocker to no one, a keystroke to invoke them. But then all your windows in the state they should be in will relaunch to exactly where they need to be. So that's one, and then there's just so many awesome power.
I was going to say sticky notes with always on top is so good. I was just curious, what are some incredible utilities that you think that not many people know about or are overlooking a little bit in PowerToys? If you were to pick one, for example.
I mean, I think File Locksmith is for sure the most underrated one. Frankly, I didn't even use it too much until this week, and I'm like, okay, I will now probably use this all the time.
I have one.
Yeah, go for it.
Find My Mouse.
Find My Mouse?
So this is one that a lot of people find by accident. It's literally, the default keystroke is double-click Control key, and what happens is this giant spotlight ends up on your mouse. So for me, when you run at 100% DPI with dual or triple mod 4Ks, ultra wides, you're like, where is my mouse? And it happens all the time, especially when you got all these battle gray applications like Visual Studio. I love Visual Studio, by the way. But you get all this stuff, and it's really hard to find it. And it just helps you. The motion helps draw your eye to exactly where it is. And it's just one of those things when you discover it, you're like, thank you. Actually, one of the other leads literally came over and is like, where has this been all my life? And I'm like, it's literally been there for a while. So that's one of those things that we're actually actively trying to figure out how we get it into Windows, because it is one of those things when you use it, you're like, why is this not there? And that's the type of data and information we love to get, so that we can justify it should go in. But I mean, that's why we love PowerToys. Yeah. We can literally incubate ideas and get them into the operating system.
Yeah. But what's your process behind code critique?
So I tend to not do what I would call mission critical code reviews. I tend to do does this feel right? Is there something that the person might not know? And how can we build the system better? So there's a bunch of people that are I play a dev on TV, but I want to know, there's a pull request right now that is helping set pull per monitor DPI for scaling for WPF apps. Hey, and the reason why that pull request happened is because we changed how PowerToys Run was being rendered with WPF UI versus modern WPF, and which are skinning for WPF UI, and we broke it unintentionally. So hey, how do we do this so we don't break any other apps? And we might have, because of how PowerToys is built, other ones that have this same bug. So my statement was, this is fantastic. How do we do it so we don't make the same mistake over and over and over again? Or is there something we can do better? Or hey, team, this part of the code needs help. Can someone come in and help out the community person? So I view my job as more of an advocate for the customer, and being sure that we're doing the correct things. And does it feel right? Occasionally I'll get asked to go, hey, does this look right from a UX stance or something? And occasionally I get bored also, and I'm like, hey, let's go, do some cool stuff.
Yeah, no, absolutely. What's the philosophy behind this goes into PowerToys first, then maybe Windows in the consumer operating system after?
Yeah, that's a great question. Both Clint and I can really speak to this, but what I'll say is there's a bunch of different avenues that we talk about for feature graduation is the term that we like to use. So graduating a feature from PowerToys into the OS. And the first is we have data, right? So PowerToys is open source. If folks want to take a look at what we're capturing, they totally can. It's all there in the code. But really what we care about is things like usage, right? If we see that a given utility is getting a lot of usage and it's something that maybe we hypothesize as not getting quite as much, then it's a nice little alarm bell for us to go say, okay, this is something that we could feel fairly confident putting some pressure on getting some resources to actually go move this into the OS. And we've actually done that a few times with some utilities, specifically some accessibility utilities as well, actually. You mentioned PowerToys isn't just for developers, and we have some, Find My Mouse is a great example of that. We had a utility called Mouse Pointer Crosshairs, which is basically also in the vein of, can I find my mouse easily? What it would do is it would set up kind of these crosshairs from your mouse vertically and horizontally on your screen. And that really helps for folks who've got kind of low vision, where they sort of just see just a little bit of their screen, and it helps them to find the lines that connect to their mouse. And that actually moved into the OS recently, which is really cool. Yeah. As far as other things that might be more contentious to get into the OS, you always have different levels of this could be really cool, but it might step on the toes of this other feature that already exists. Is this going to be something that we want to merge, or is this going to be something that we want to shift into? All of that kind of has testing that we'll think through with PowerToys. Because of the telemetry, we're really well equipped to say, okay, this worked how we thought, or it worked how we didn't think. Yeah. And then make decisions from there. But
cool.
Or I was going to say, it could just be really, really hard to put into the operating system, even to do the experimentation, where PowerToys has the advantage of it's self-contained. We use only public APIs, so we can do things that we can test and validate this is a good idea, and we can then say, hey, let's go bring it into the operating system. It's going to be, we are eyes wide open on how hard it will be, but we know from data that is a good thing for the customer and for the users, so everyone here. We're definitely the core group of users also. Or should the idea be, we're targeting power users. Power users can, projects, a normal, I love them. normal users, like I use my mom as my canonical example, would never pass in an argument, a command line argument to an application. Projects assumes you're going to pass in command line arguments. So power users know how to do this, and we're okay with that. Then we have to figure out how do you, if this becomes a thing, how do you enable it for everyone?
Like bridge that gap, right?
So we can solve the power user example in a state that works for them and works for all of us, and then we can figure out this is a good thing. How do we bring it to everyone? So there's, as Ethan said, multiple different ways we want to solve it. This is just one way we solved it. How do we do cool stuff for everyone?
Yeah, and actually one more important note on that subject for the community watching. That's a huge part of how we determine what should actually become a power toy, and then also what graduates, right? We take a large look at the issues that come in, especially the reactions on the issues. We see issues for requests that get like 100 plus likes, and we're like, okay, that's a good sign that maybe we should devote some resources to that. And then of course we always get asked of why isn't this feature in the OS, and we're definitely looking out for other folks to say, yeah, +1 this for sure. And so as a community member, one thing that you can do is be very vocal. We do listen, and we want to make sure that we can help make sure that our community members feel supported by the work we do.
And then there was a great utility, the host file editor. Literally, we're on our weekly sync where a couple community members are also on it, and Jeremy Sinclair was like, man, you know what I'm really missing is a way to quickly edit my host file, which for those who don't know, a host file is what does an IP to a URL mapping. So you can, I was like, oh, why are you going in there? He's like, for network switching, so he's like, for test environments for prod, I want to act like prod, and so I go in there constantly. We're like, huh. And then a bunch of other people were like, that would be cool. And then another community member literally created it, Davi did, and had the pull request open, knocked out literally the next day, and like, and that's why we love the community. We love PowerToys because we can do that extreme rapid iteration and create a minimal lovable product that then everyone's like, this is fantastic. Like there's still other things we would love to do there, but like it's really powerful in its current state, and that's why it was graduated into DevHome.
I was going to say, with this whole like approach with Microsoft doing this whole thing open source, it's a really interesting way of seeing development happen. And so I have this question for you both here before we talk about this new feature you guys released yesterday, you said, right?
Yeah.
So, both of you have a background in working in like a business area, right? So Ethan, you've worked in financial companies as a strategy consultant, project manager. You've been at Clint, you've been at Microsoft for over 17 years now. You worked on Halo 5. You've done early versions of Azure with like the reporting system and all that, right? So my question for the both of you is like, how do you transition from something that is not necessarily a small team, but like, you're focusing on a team, to then being 451 contributors and then the whole internet having something to say? How's there's two different philosophies. How do you transition to that?
Yeah, a huge part of it is we rely on our community. We've got community members who know exactly how we think, and they help us scale quite a lot. Of course, there's a lot of feedback we get, and sometimes it's hard to get to all of them, but we've been working on a bunch of different ways to kind of get to those. One of the recent ones that we've added to our Git repository is a way to find like duplicate issues. We've got a bot that now replies to GitHub issues and says, hey, this looks actually pretty similar to this other thing. Because, of course, when you're creating an issue, it's really hard to say, oh yeah, I've actually like gonna go search and make sure that this hasn't been reported already. I know when I file feedback, sometimes I'm guilty of not doing that. I just kind of say, hey, this isn't working, I can't believe it. And we get a lot of kind of feedback like that. And so that's one of the things that we've been scaling through. But yeah, I think triage and getting through all that feedback is one of the things that I've been focusing on quite a lot recently. It's a hard problem to solve.
Especially when you have 106,000 stars, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
They probably load in.
Oh, it's crazy. I feel like we just crossed that 100K mark like last winter, and we're already at 106. It's pretty crazy how much attention we're getting, and I only expect that to increase, and so we've got to make sure that we're on top of making sure that we can get all that feedback and process it correctly. But yeah, you probably have a lot more thoughts here too.
My opinion is, fight for the user, to quote Tron. Like, we are building something that we want people to use. So at the end of the day, build what they want. So before Halo, I was developer advocate. I was in developer marketing. So like everything we think about, like at least on my team, we're customer obsessed. Like if you're not talking to a customer, as like you've heard me say constantly, like let's go talk.
Yep.
And we get that feedback and we hear and we listen. Like there's a lot more of the community than there are of us. So we're trying to scale, but and we're trying to take all that feedback and build something amazing that works for everyone. And we just have to embrace like, would we use this? Is this cool? And like one of the litmus tests is like I call it the lean in test. I attribute this to one of my old managers, Nick Wagner, where it's like, did the person lean in? And it sounds really weird, but when you see it, you're like, I got it. And that like the future we'll talk about Advanced Paste. I leaned in. Like that to me is like one of the ultimate litmus tests where I'm like, oh, that was cool. Like,
so what do you mean by lean
like
in?
The person you are showing literally leans in to the monitor
because they're intrigued.
They're interested.
Yeah.
And when something's neat, they want to. They're like looking at everything, and like that's when we start knowing like, okay, there is we use the word signal. So we're like, okay, great. What things can we do even better? What things need to get tweaked? What things need to get adjusted? Because a lot of the things we initially try are really rough. So like Advanced Paste, literally it was a bunch of really big square boxes. It was not pretty in the slightest when it was initially shown. And when we show some of these things, we have to be very cautious on who we show it to because they're rough. They're prototypes. Their goal is to get the thing to create the experience, not make it look pretty. We can make it look pretty in post.
Some people just can't see the vision as far away. Right?
So that's what we do, and then like Ethan's fantastic at a program called Figma for creating high fidelity mocks. Yeah. So then we can couple that with the real thing, and then show what the experience would be to help alleviate certain things. But just going in and creating that magical experience is what we're aiming for. And when you see people lean in, you start going like, yes. And like some of it is also just gut feel. Does this feel like it would be cool? Sometimes our gut's wrong, and that's why we talk to customers and everyone else, is because what's cool to you might not be cool to us, but that's okay. Yeah. Like going back to video games. There are video games I don't like, but they're clearly successful.
Yeah.
So that's like, it's fantastic.
And that's the beauty of open source, you know? And you kind of touched on it just a little bit, but copy and paste, like this is, computers 101. So your latest feature is Advanced Paste. So what is it? Yeah. So what's how is copy and paste changing?
Yeah, totally. So paste side events have been something we've gotten feedback on for quite a while.
Paste side events?
Yeah. So like clipboard related things when I go to paste and I want my formatting to change. A few months back, we released Paste as plain text, which was a power toy to just have a shortcut to say, hey, I want this to just strip all the formatting from my text and paste. And of course, that's been great. And so that was actually kind of a community member thing where we got a bunch of different requests. We said, hey, this is worth going to go build. And so Advanced Paste is sort of building off of that foundation and saying, well, we could probably take this a step further with AI.
I would actually go, there was a bunch of people also who were like, can you do more?
Right.
Can you do more? Well, it was like, can you do this? Can you paste this? Can you paste this? So then you run into the problem of, now you have 15 things, and then could we do more? So I'll let you.
Yeah, yep, exactly. And so what we're doing with Advanced Paste is giving users more agency to say, hey, I've got this thing in my clipboard, and I want it to paste as something that it isn't already. And so what we do is we intercept a paste event, and we give the users the ability to, I think it's Win-Shift-V. Okay. And so Win-Shift-V will pop up this nice little window, and it will say, hey, like, what do you want? It's actually like a little text box, pretty similar to like when you're working with an LLM. And you can say, I'd like this to paste as a table and README. Maybe you've copied some JSON, and obviously if you were to go and paste that JSON into a README file, it's not going to look super pretty, but you want that table to be in the README somehow. You don't want to have to go and open up an Excel, like kind of paste it, and it's going to get messed up anyways. So what we're doing is we're giving users the ability to work with AI and say, hey, this is how I want my clipboard to look. Can you help me change it?
Nice. You know, PowerToys has been just such an incredible tool for the community, and it's popular for a reason, right? So yeah, so Clint.
Thank you.
Ethan.
Thank you so much.
It was nice meeting you guys, and yeah, see you around Build.